So I want to talk a little bit about this Gaza situation again. I've kind of laid off on that for a while because it's I've talked about it a lot and it's upsetting. But things come out all the time that just make you think. So the latest revelation in the discussion is that it apparently took the Israeli forces 8 hours from the time the Hamas attack began until the time that Israeli soldiers arrived to help. Now, for those of you who don't pay much attention to what's going on over there, Israel is a teeny tiny little country. Gaza is an area the size of roughly, New York, and Newark, New Jersey combined. It's about the size of it. So you can easily get from one side of it to the other, especially if you have a plane or you have a helicopters, of which the Israeli army has plenty, provided by us, of course. So there's no excuse or justification, and no explanation has been given why those people had to be under attack for 8 hours. When you can fly by helicopter from one place in Israel to another in like 15 minutes. So they've been given. I've heard some rather weak-kneed explanations as to why they didn't do anything when they had this information about this attack for over a year. Well, they didn't take it seriously. Well, they thought that the attack might come from the north, so they moved troops and things up to the northern part of Israel. But all of those are really pathetic. But there's been no explanation given as to this 8-hour delay. So I have a theory. Now, normally I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I think they're ridiculous. If you don't have evidence to support your position, solid, concrete, admissible evidence, then you should just back off of your conspiracy theory until you get some evidence. Like all these people saying that Joe Biden must have somehow benefited from Hunter Biden's business dealings, and they have zero evidence to show it. They just say, well, that just stands to reason. Well, it doesn't stand to reason. You need facts. But there's such a thing as circumstantial evidence. And I love people saying, but there's just circumstantial evidence. Well, a lot of criminal defendants are behind bars because of circumstantial evidence. That is, for example, fingerprints, ballistics tests. Those are circumstantial evidence. They're not direct evidence. Direct evidence is sometimes the worst evidence, which is you get an eyewitness identifies somebody, and then they find out later that their identification was wrong, because that's often very unreliable testimony. People think they see things all the time that they don't really. Well, they pick somebody out of a lineup because he looks kind of like the person they saw, shoot somebody with a machine gun in Fifth Avenue. Oh, that was Donald Trump. No, that wouldn't be a problem. So there's circumstantial evidence. So what's the circumstantial evidence relating to this? What's going on in Israel? Well, first of all, you've heard this expression, from the river to the sea. And you've heard that normally in people saying, this shows that the pro-Palestinian people are, one, pro-Hamas, which they aren't necessarily, and two, it means that the Palestinians who say from the river to the sea, they want to execute and wipe out all the Israelis living between the river and the sea, so that Palestine can revert to what it was prior to 1948, which was from the River Jordan, which is chilly and cold, all the way over to the Mediterranean Sea, which would pick up and include Gaza. So the people chanting that, from the river to the sea, Gaza will be free, or something like that. And that's not necessarily a terrible thing for a Palestinian to wish for, because before 1948, it all was Palestine. Incidentally, I heard a joke on some comedian was talking about Joe Biden, and he said that Joe Biden is talking about it, making fun of his age, and he said, and Joe Biden doesn't really is not as sympathetic to Israel because he's 4 years older than Israel. And everybody got a big laugh out of that. Well, I'm 3 years older than Israel, so I didn't think it was all that damn funny. But enough about me. I'm kidding. It's all about me, and you know that. But let's divert and talk about my other best friend, Bibi Netanyahu. So, in the river to the sea is part of the Likud platform, which is the Likud is the political party of Benjamin Netanyahu. That party has consistently been opposed to any two-state solution, a Palestinian state, and they're opposed to it. On the record, they're opposed to it. So if they're opposed to it, what are they in favor of? They're in favor of no Palestinian nation, which means that Israel would own the land from the river to the sea. You'd eliminate the Arabs on the West Bank, you eliminate the Arabs in Gaza, or put them all under Israeli military control, and guess what? Now you have Israel from the river to the sea. So this is not just a rallying cry for the Palestinians, it's also a rallying cry for Israelis. The problem is Israel shouldn't really be a country, in my opinion. What happened was you had people living there, really from this whole thing started really in the 1800s with Disraeli and the Suez Canal, but then it became official a policy of England in 1916 when Lord Balfour, who was then Foreign Secretary, declared that there should be an independent Jewish state for Israelis and in what was then Palestine. But the exodus of Jews from all around the world, particularly from America, and going to Israel, that didn't happen until after 1948. And then there was a massive movement, and it has now risen up to over 10 million people there. There were like 700,000, I think, there at the time that no, it was more than that. But it was not a huge amount in 1948. That because of migration from other countries, primarily Europe, Russia, and the United States, have swollen the population of Israel to over 10 million. In the meantime, you've had the Palestinians continuing to grow. They're up to now, like 2.1 million in the West, in Gaza, and like 3 million in the West Bank. And those people are living in tiny slivers of land. Like I said, you can't even see Gaza on a map unless it's blown up, which is probably a poor choice of words by me, but it's early in the morning. So there's not enough land to go around, and that's the problem. And it wasn't a problem created by the Palestinians. They were living there. You didn't have a flood of Palestinians coming into that area. You had a flood of Jews coming in from that area, other areas, and they shoved the Palestinians off of the land where they were living into these, some people call them, real life ghettos, or, prisons. They say Gaza is the largest open air prison in what's wrong with me today? I know I haven't had a martini. Well, I'll rectify that in a few minutes. The largest open air prison on the planet. It's clearly the most crowded conditions of any city. Gaza City, the most crowded city in the world. What's left of it. So this gets me back to, well, what's the explanation for why you had this 8-hour delay? And my theory, and I've expressed this before, is that Bibi Netanyahu's goal is to eliminate the Palestinians as a viable entity, and to realize the Likud dream of Israel from the river to the sea, and no rights for the Palestinians. And the more Palestinians he can get rid of, the easier that is to do. In my opinion, what he's doing over there right now is genocide. And it's a blatant attempt at genocide. And what's the basis for that genocide? What was his justification for going in there and bombing the hell out of the children in Gaza? And I'm not going to get off on that again, it's too upsetting. His justification was this attack that occurred on October 7th. So the more horrific that attack, the more the Israeli people are going to support going into Gaza and just doing whatever you can to eliminate Hamas. So my opinion is that this was Netanyahu knew what was coming. It was over a year in the making. There's reports now that he was actually encouraging Arab states to send money to Hamas, to the Hamas government, to be used as they chose. And that Netanyahu was encouraging that, and that they did nothing to take any precautions about this imminent attack. I mean, even if you don't believe it's going to happen, any reasonable person, any head of government, when you have potential, lethal enemies right on the same border with each other, is going to take precautions to make sure nothing like that happens. He didn't. The attack occurred, and then they sat back for 8 hours. And I was listening to Morning Joe today, and they kept saying, "What's the reason? Where's the explanation?" We don't give any explanation. Every time anybody asks an Israeli official, they say, "Well, we'll talk about repercussions later. Right now, we just have to get rid of Hamas." So my theory is it's deliberate. He knew this was coming. He was glad it was coming. When it came, he sat back and watched it happen. Did nothing for 8 hours while those people were killed, and the stories of what was done by these vicious people from Hamas, most of whom, they're not part of a regulated army. They're not part of any kind of army. They're basically thugs, many of them teenagers, driving around in pickup trucks, thinking of hot stuff because they have M16s, and they are. In no way are these decent, responsible human beings. These are pigs. But the Israeli army should have been there like that. Boom! They could have stopped this immediately. There's horrific stories of people hiding in their closets for 8 hours. One was in a closet where I had a little girl for 24 hours, waiting to be rescued. And there's no reason in the world, no explanation that any rational person has presented or even speculated as to why that happened. So I've got the answer, which you just heard, is they deliberately held back so that this attack could be as horrific as possible, which would then give Netanyahu the authority to say, and the backing to say to Jews all over the world, "Hey, look what they did to us. We have a right to defend ourselves." They had a right to defend themselves in Israel too, but they didn't. We have a right to defend ourselves, so we can go into Hamas, and we don't care how many innocent people we kill because we're defending Israel. In defending Israel when they should have, when they could have, they're defending Israel now that attack is over with. It had lasted one day, and in the last 2 months, Israel has been basically destroying the population of Hamas. See, now you got me doing it, Bibi. The Palestinian population in Gaza has basically been reduced. I mean, you've seen these pictures. Hundreds of thousands of people in a mob scene waiting for some food handouts. What are they supposed to do that for every meal? 500,000 people standing there waiting to get some bread so they can give their children? They're going to kill that. They're going to wipe out that population. When this is all over and done, the smoke and dust and the debris have cleared, you're going to find that the population of Gaza is shrunk to make probably half of the population that it was before this all started. And what's left is going to be under Israeli occupation. They're not going back to Gaza City because there's no city for them to go back to. Now they're destroying the largest cities in southern Gaza. Where are these people supposed to go? How are they supposed to eat? And now the World Health Organization is talking about there are going to be massive outbreaks of cholera and other diseases. That drinking water is filthy. Hospitals can't begin to take care of people. They're operating on people without anesthesia. The rest of the world is appalled and disgusted by this, and we veto the UN resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire. There we are again. Whatever Israel wants, we are right there for them all the time. The rest of the world isn't. When you're the person in the crowd that's doing something different from everybody else, there's a pretty good chance that you're the one who's wrong. So, but if I'm right, then Bibi Netanyahu is one of the worst war criminals that this country has ever produced. And I hope to hell that people are thinking about that and not just saying, "Well, gee, we haven't gotten an explanation from Israel yet as to why they waited more than 8 hours to go in and defend these people." Oh, wonder what it is. I think I've got a pretty good, I think my theory, and again, I'm not a person who likes all these conspiracy theories, but this isn't conspiracy spun out of the air. I'm talking about the facts as I'm observing them and as everybody else is observing them. But I think I'm saying what the people on the media are afraid to say, which is that this thing quite possibly was deliberately set up by Netanyahu so he'd have an excuse to basically eliminate any sort of possible presence by the Palestinians and any claim they might have to an independent state. And if that's true, that's horrific. I hope I'm wrong. but I'm afraid I don't think I am.